So we'll get started. Thanks for joining me again at lunch today. Today we're talking about the F word, and all of these videos are designed to inspire and support you in being and becoming your best self and creating and living a life that you absolutely freaking love. And today's topic, the F word. Now, the F word, in my opinion, gets a bad rap. Some people love the F word, some people hate the F word, some people use it all the time, some people don't use it enough. And I'm telling you, if you truly want to live and lead your best life, if you want to build a career you love, a relationship you love, if you want to be good at anything, you need more of the F word in your life. Before I came to love the F word, I was inconsistent. I was very, very self critical. And because I brought the F word into my life and started using it more and more consistently, I feel more confidence, my improvement. I've had improvements in my performance. I've gotten better results in my life, in my love, in my health, my fitness, my work, my career, all by bringing in the F word. And of course, the F word I'm talking about today is feedback. The F word I'm talking about today is feedback. Don't go away. Stick around. I had some people message me yesterday and said, "Hey, I know what you're going to talk about tomorrow. You're going to talk about failure, aren't you?" No, actually, we're going to talk about feedback. And again, feedback gets a bad rap, you know? A lot of people, I mean, just think about it. How do you respond when someone says, "Hey, can I give you some feedback?" How do you typically respond? Like, does the little like lizard brain kind of kick in and you go into fight or flight? You kind of already start to feel defensive when someone says, "Hey, can I give you some feedback?" Well, that's part of the problem is that um, feedback, really, really good, effective feedback doesn't come from an outside resource. Really, really good, effective feedback actually comes from yourself. We're going to talk about that today. So let's get started talking about feedback. And the reason I chose this topic is because if there's a couple like high leverage things that have really, really changed my life, those are the things I'm going to share on a Thursday. And feedback and doing it well and doing it consistently and frequently is one of those things that has absolutely transformed my life. And I feel better about myself. I'm getting better results. My performance has improved. So there's a lot of reasons and benefits to building a system around feedback in your life. So that's why I picked that topic today. Feedback, what most people don't realize is that, I worked inside of an organization for the last 8 or 9 years, and people always got really, really uncomfortable around the word feedback. Leaders were reluctant to give feedback, and rightfully so, because they haven't really been taught how to give effective feedback and make it meaningful. Feedback really is just information. That's all it is. It's just information, and ideally it's used to help people perform better and improve their lives. It's just information. That's it. And yet we all get our panties tied in a bunch when it comes to giving and receiving feedback. But really it's just information. That's all it is. And feedback given in the right way, it should actually improve performance, which oftentimes feedback actually makes performance worse. It should also motivate you. And when we think about any feedback we get from a boss or a parent or a coach, oftentimes it demotivates us. Think about your annual performance review or something like that. And the third aspect of feedback that's absolutely essential is it should maintain and build your self-esteem. Again, feedback has three critical byproducts of it when it's done effectively. And that is, it should improve performance, it should motivate, and it should maintain the self-confidence and self-esteem of the person that's getting the feedback. And so we want to start to develop our skill set around feedback for our own lives, starting with us. Before we can give, really great feedback to others and invite others to create feedback for themselves, we want to get good at it for our own lives. We want to be a demonstration of what's possible with feedback. And so the problem is that there's three real problems that come around with feedback. And again, I've taught feedback classes. I've been given feedback, playing college sports, playing high school sports, doing speech, doing presentations, all of that, right? So I've given feedback, I've gotten feedback, and what I have found is there's really three problems with feedback. And the first is that it's not frequent enough. We need to have feedback frequently. If we wanted to be motivated and stay in the game and keep building our best life and keep improving our performance at school, at work, in our relationships, we need to have constant feedback. And just think about if you were to go bowling. Let's say you were going to go bowling. And when you got to the bowling alley, there were bowling balls and there was a lane, but you could not see the pins. You couldn't see the pins. Okay, so you would get up to go bowling, you'd pick up your ball, you'd roll the ball down the lanes, and you never knew how many pins you knocked down. How long are you actually going to keep getting up and rolling the ball down the lane when you have no feedback on how you're doing? You don't know if you're knocking 10 pins down, if you're knocking 1 pin down. You don't know. You're not getting any feedback. So if we want to stay motivated and stay in the game of life and the areas that matter most to us, then we need to be establishing a system for consistent feedback that keeps us engaged and in the game so we know how we score. Are we on or are we off? And that's going to keep us coming back for more. So we need to have feedback frequently in our life. And so oftentimes there's no feedback. How often do you get feedback on your marriage? How often you get feedback on your career? Maybe an annual performance review. Maybe if you're in a really great organization working for a really great leader, you're having feedback conversations all day, every day, and they don't even feel like feedback. Those are going to be your best kind of situation. So the first problem with feedback is that it's not frequent enough. The second problem is that oftentimes, almost always, our feedback that we're getting is external. And that is the worst kind of feedback, is when we're getting feedback from other people. And the reason being, and there's lots of research done on this, you can go Google it anywhere you want, about feedback biases. Oftentimes, people who give us feedback are projecting their own issues on us, and they're actually giving us feedback about how they would do it. They don't know our personal experiences. They don't know our talents and strengths. The person who's going to be best, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but they can't give us accurate feedback. It is absolutely impossible. Go look at the research. Gallup poll has a ton of information on this, but you can't get effective feedback from other people. They're always bringing their own stories, their own issues to the table. I saw this in my annual performance reviews all the freaking time, that somebody else had an issue with me, but oftentimes it was the thing that they were working on. It just brings a huge highlight to it. Just think about whenever most of us have been on a diet at some point in our lives. If you're on a diet, you are constantly assessing how everybody is eating. Like, it's just because you're so focused on it, you're projecting your own issues onto them. You're watching them eat and you're like, oh boy, it must be nice. They can get away with that. Or, oh, they shouldn't eat that. Or, I wish I could have that. We're constantly looking at other people through our lens of the things that we're focused on. You cannot get feedback from others that is non-biased. It's going to be effective for you. So that's the second problem with it. The third problem is, I have it written down here. So biased, it's not frequent enough. And we do it wrong. We do it wrong. That's the third area here, is that we do it wrong. Oftentimes when if somebody will come to me and say, hey, Lori, I got to give this person feedback. It's often because there's something wrong. And that's not the best time to be giving feedback. Like, if you're really going to be in a good partnership with someone where you're their boss and you're helping them perform at their best, which, by the way, is your job, is to help people perform at their best, then you should be having conversations with them all the time about what's working, what's not working. What do you think? What would you try here? Given your experience, what do you think we should do next? Like, the leader should be asking the people that. And so when you think about how we do it wrong, is that oftentimes people just come in and tell them what to do. And we're working with adults. And so you don't want to just come in and tell them what you would do. They're, they want autonomous support. They want to be able to make the decisions for themselves. If you really want a highly engaged workforce, you want people on your team who are self-directed, who are self-assessing constantly, and we can help create that container for them. So we do it wrong. We just come in and we hammer people with what's wrong instead of talking about what's right, which brings us to the solution. And so I said earlier, inconsistency, we're not doing it enough, so we need to dial that up. And we need to dial up the frequency of feedback. And for me, I give feedback to myself all the time. Like before this performance, I sat down and thought about, what are my objectives here for this talk on Facebook? How do I hope it goes? What am I trying to improve on from last time? And then when I get done, I'm going to take stock. I'm going to take stock with who? Myself. Did I show up the way I wanted to? And this is where the second solution is that the feedback should come from yourself. And the reason I say this is that, sure, you may have blind spots from time to time, but more often than not, you know what you're capable of. You know what got in the way of you showing up the way you want to show up. How often have you come off the performance field, or you came out of a situation with an upset customer and your boss came to you and said, hey, you did a really good job there. Or you got off the court, the basketball court, and the coach said, hey, you did a really good job there. Or you got done doing a presentation and your boss came up to you and said, hey, great job on that presentation. And you know inside you're like, could have been better. Could have been better. You know what you're capable of. And what you really need in that situation is someone to hold the space to guide you through a conversation with yourself, to identify, what was your target with that presentation? Did you hit the mark or did you miss the mark? What went well? What didn't go well? Which leads us to the next part of how to do feedback really, really well. And so the solution here is we want to go to the source, which you're the best person for the feedback. You don't need external feedback. Very, very rarely. We can reach out to people, but we want to be really careful about who we reach out to. Also, we want to, the 3 W's. Oh, I'm so excited. This is awesome. So one of the things I do with feedback is, like, when I get done with this Facebook, I'm going to do the 3 W's. So the first W is I'm going to assess what were my wins. And these are the things that I'm super proud of. These are the things that went well. That's the first thing we want to do. Any type of feedback situation we're in, whether we're getting feedback on an event, we're getting feedback on a trip we took, we're taking stock on a trip we took, we're taking stock on a conversation we had, we're taking stock on our relationships, whatever it may be, the first thing you want to do is start off on a positive note. There's something that you did well. So we want to highlight that to right off the bat. We want to start with a celebration. So the first W in the 3 W's in how to do feedback well is to identify wins. What'd you do well? What went awesome that you did? What are we here to celebrate? What are you proud of yourself for doing? And so an example of, like, doing Facebook Lives, if that's something you aspire to do, the fact that you did it, there's so much nerves that go into this, is a win, just showing up to do it. So if you have a presentation, just the fact that you did it, that you showed up, is a win. So we want to highlight right off the bat, what are the things that went really, really well? So that's the first step. And then the second step is, the first is the win. And then for me, I like to use, this has been really fun for me because I'm trying to lighten up around it, is what do I wish I would have done? What do I wish I would have done that I didn't do? So this is the second W. And this is essentially what needs work. The first W is what went well. The second W is what needs work. What do I wish I would have done that I didn't do? What do I wish I would have done to prepare better? What do I wish I would have done to engage the audience? What do I wish I would have done differently? Right? And so I'll write down 1. Like, I really am trying to limit myself to 1, because there's oftentimes a million things you want to write down, because who's our worst critic? We are. We all know that. So it's really easy to line up that column around what didn't work or what needs work. What do you wish you would have done? I plan on doing these a long time in the future, so I'm playing the long game, and I want to stay motivated. I want to keep making incremental improvements, and I want to maintain my self-confidence and self-esteem. So One thing. What do I wish I would have done that I didn't do? Now, this brings up something very, very important. We'll get to the third W here in just a second. But we want these first two columns. We want the ratio to be 5-1. We want the ratio to be 5-1. And there's a reason for this. John Gottman over at the University of Washington in Seattle, he studies relationships, and he's able to predict within the first 3 to 5 minutes of a couple interacting together, 3 to 5 minutes, whether their relationship is gonna end in divorce or not. And what he has found when he studies people and these couples interacting, they actually have like a house that people go to. They stay there for like a weekend. They give them hot topics, stuff like money and, things like that to talk about with your spouse. And what they have found is that the couples who have 5 positive interactions to 1 negative interaction, they are the ones that are going to make it. They're the ones that will not end in divorce. And they're able to predict this by like 95, 97%. Just look it up. It's over University of Washington, John Gottman. So the ratio, the magic number is 5-1. That's how we want to have our relationship to ourself. A positive, happy marriage with another person is a ratio of 5-1. The same is true for us. If we want to have a good, positive relationship with ourselves, we want the conversation we're having in our head to be a positive 5 to a negative 1. That's it. 5-1. So this is also true inside of organizations. So Gallup also have done studies around the most engaged employees and what the interactions look like between a leader and a follower, a leader and a teammate. And again, the ratio comes up 5-1. It's more like 4-1 in that particular case, but it's still very, very close, 5-1. So even with the dialogue and the relationship you have with yourself, which by the way, is the most important relationship you will ever have, is the relationship you have with yourself. It doesn't matter how everybody else gives you kudos about how awesome you are. If you don't feel it, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. So the most important relationship you have is the one you have with yourself. So we want to cultivate that happy, long-term marriage to ourself, that relationship with ourself of the ratio 5-1. So when it comes to taking stock on your performance, on your life, or anything, we want to identify what are your wins, 5 of them. What did you do well today? And then what do you wish you did that you didn't do? That's your negative. That's your one negative, which brings us to the final W. And this is basically what's your next step? What are you going to do to improve? The way I've been playing around with it lately, to be more lighthearted with myself, is I asked myself, I wonder what would happen if. I wonder what would happen if I tried this. I wonder what would happen if I invited a couple people to Facebook Lives. I wonder what would happen if I tried to get a better tagline. I wonder what would happen if I introduced the topic the day before, which you saw me do this week. So I wonder if is it a way to be creative about ways to improve in a lighthearted way instead of this harsh, like, this is what you need to do and you suck and all of that, right? We get enough of that in our head. So we want to focus on how we give our feedback to ourselves is 3 W's. What's working, right? I like to say what's a win. Let's start with a win. I often start coaching conversation with, tell me a win. Tell me something we can celebrate together since the last time we talked. Tell me a win. What'd you do well? I encourage you as a parent, as a leader, as a teacher, as a coach, to start your conversations that way. Your kiddo gets done with ballet, your kiddo gets done with piano, baseball, whatever it may be. What went well today? That could even be just a take stock at dinner time. And it leaves open an opportunity for them to assess their own performance. And we want to encourage them to keep going. What else went well today? What else? Because they may only say one thing, or they may immediately go right to what needs work, which is, what do I wish, right? So want to help them focus on maintaining that self-confidence and that self-esteem while also consistently making improvements, which is the one of, what do you wish would have happened today that didn't happen today, honey? What do you wish you would have done differently today? And then it's, what do you want to do tomorrow? What do you think would help the day be even better tomorrow? And what do you think would help your performance next time? I wonder what would happen if, right? So these are ways that we can give ourselves feedback and also facilitate feedback conversations with others. Kids even know what they're capable of. So if we can hold that space for them. If you look at like gymnastics, this is so fascinating to watch, like the Olympic Games. When you see an Olympic athlete come off the mat after doing their gymnastics routine, the coach will often ask them, how do you think it went? How do you think it went? That's the head coach asking them. The head coach has watched years and years and years of this, but they know that their performer, their athlete, knows better what it feels like in their body when they're on and when they're off. They're the best critic of themselves. And I can even say in college sports, that's exactly what my coach would do to me. If I grounded out or I hit a pop-up, they wouldn't tell me you dropped your shoulder or anything like that. They'd ask me, what happened? And sometimes I wouldn't know, like, I'm not sure. Well, if you did know, what would you say? Well, I think I dropped my elbow. No, you actually didn't drop your elbow. What I saw you do was this, right? So they're helping me better assess my own performance so I can be self-directed, and that's going to improve my motivation. It's internally motivated versus externally motivated. So we want to do taking stock. We want to be doing feedback with ourselves frequently. So I encourage you to do it before important conversations, after conversations, important conversations, before performances, after performances. I do it at the end of every single day where I look back on the day and say, what went well? What are my wins? What did I achieve that I'm really happy about? What do I wish would have went differently today? And then the third one is, I wonder what would happen tomorrow if. That's how I take stock at the end of the day. And then I also do what's called an after actions report at the end of the week, which is strictly focused on my business accomplishments. And again, I do the same thing. What was awesome? What needs work? What am I going to try next week? That's it, every single week. And then I do that monthly, I do that quarterly, and I do that annually. And I do that specifically in a couple areas that are very, very important to me. So for me, career, having a meaningful career matters to me. Having a successful business matters to me. So I consistently take stock with myself, giving myself feedback around it. I also do that with my energy, fitness, and health, which I use an Aura ring to help me track data on that. I also self-assess. What do I feel like today on a level of 1 to 10? How energized do I feel today? How's my ability to focus on my task? How's that today? So I'll take stock on those types of things. I take stock on my love, my relationships. I take stock on my finances. I take stock on my lifestyle. So I always put, vacations on the calendar in advance, and I take stock before and after. Is that a place I'd want to go again? What was awesome about it? What would make it better? Those types of things. So the F word, feedback. We want to do it more frequently. We want to go to the main source, you. You know you best. You know your experiences. You know your talents and strengths. You know your weaknesses. And if we want to stay engaged, we want to rock that 5-to-1 ratio. That's how we really, really create that sustained, improved performance where our self-esteem is maintained and also we feel motivated and engaged in the process. I now feel super empowered by the data. I now feel super empowered by feedback, which is why I love the F word. I love it now because I know how to do it well, and I know how to coach others to help me do it well, right? Because oftentimes people don't know how to do it well. Again, we want that 5-to-1 ratio. That's kind of the sweet spot. So, challenge to you. Apply this to your own life. What area of your life are you not getting the results that you would like to get in? Is it your health and fitness? Is it your marriage? Is it your career? Is it your finances? Is it your travel? Is it your spirituality? Is it your friendships? Is it the relationship you have with yourself? Pick an area. You can't just do it all. You got to pick some areas. If you're trying to shoot at 10 different goals at one time, you're not going to hit any of them. You got to pick 1 or 2 that are really, really critical to you that if you focused on those things consistently, you would improve all aspects of your life. So what's an area for you that you want to focus on? Then look at your calendar over the next 7 days. When, where, and for how long will you take stock on your performance in that particular area, the results that you're getting in that particular area? And again, when we sit down and we take stock with ourselves, we want 5-to-1 ratio. 5 things that were awesome, 1 thing that could use some work, and then I wonder what would happen if I tried this tomorrow. I wonder what would happen if I tried this next week. So we want to do that. And then, last part, start doing it. That's the third part. Challenge you to start doing it. Start taking feedback with yourself. So that's it today. The F word. Stick around for Q&A if you want to. If you got a jam. But stick around for Q&A. I'll stay a couple minutes longer. But feedback, it's a good thing. We want to welcome it. We want to learn how to do it right. We want to go to the source for the correct information. Sure, we can get good data from other people, but the most important relationship you're ever going to have, and if you really want to sustain performance in your life and maintain your self-confidence and self-esteem, you are your best assessor of your current performance and the results you want in your life. Some magazine article isn't going to be able to tell you how often you should be having sex. Like, you know you best. How often do you want to have sex? So these are things you should be asking yourself. You don't need someone else to do that for you. So that's it for today. I hope you got some value. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Join me again next week, 12:30 to 1 p.m. Again, I'm going to stick around here for Q&A if you've got it. I'd love to hear, what was your biggest insight? What did you love about it? Do you plan to apply this to your life? Be sure to mark your calendars, 12:30 to 1 every Thursday. I'll be sharing tips and tools and ideas to help you live and lead your most authentic, most awesome kick-ass life. Because when you shine brighter, the world literally shines brighter. We want one another to be happy. Let's help each other win. And giving ourselves feedback is a way to help you win. Maintaining your self-confidence, improving incrementally, and staying motivated and in the game.